Hello everybody, it's Zach07 with another video. This time we are playing some modern burn, but it's not a typical modern burn, of course. Uh, we added some zoo elements to the build. It's first of all it's night colors, so we are splashing green for wild cattle, but also for three tarmogoyfs in the main. So, in order to get Tarmogoyf playable in a deck, we are playing 4 Mishra's Bubble and 2 Tarfire as additional card types to boost Tarmogoyf early, and it's been pretty effective. Um, this way, I succeeded to get rid of the worst burn spells in the deck, which is Rift Bolt, Skewer the Critics, while while getting Tarmogoyf perfectly playable for in this build, and it's pretty aggressive, and it gets large pretty fast, and it's never been small, and but also just right now Tarmogoyf is good by itself because there's just a really lot of these low curve DRC decks around, and Tarmogoyf just tends to grow very large just by jamming it turn 2. And okay, so we have some additional green cards on the sideboard. Of course, the biggest gain going green for the burn in the sideboard is Destructive Revelry. We can also ditch the Skullcrack for Atarka's Command. Atarka's Command is slightly better, especially in this version, which is playing more creatures than usual version. Okay, so this Mishra's Bubbles adding it's like a free cycle, let's say, and it enabling us to go down a land probably, and just get to draw the spells, uh, get to draw the best spells in the deck, and not being forced to play uh, the weaker burn spells, except for two of Tarfires. And of course, a skewer can be great in a lot of situations as a Rift Bolt, but they also can be bad sometimes. So um, in this way, we are adding a creature, a very aggressive creature, to the main, which is pretty good right now in the current metagame. It tends to grow pretty large, and of course, we always have an option to board the Tarmogoyf out by most often by adding Tarkus command or when adding Rest in Pieces in the main, and all the sideboard pieces are very good, and you really know when you have to put each of these pieces in. It's not too hard to mulligan. And of course, we're also playing Wild Nakatal. Wild Nakatal, it's a pretty aggressive one drop that can end the game pretty quickly. So in two attacks by turn 3, it can deal 6 damage, which is very which is really what we are trying to do here. And together with the burn spells, it can end the game. It can really end the game fast. So, okay, that's it. I had decent success with the list in the leagues, and we'll just go to one 4-1 league. I finished recently, and see the matches, check out the gameplay. Okay, so concerning mana base, we have 3 stomping grounds, 2 foundries, 2 basics, some canyons, and the rest is the fetches. Okay, so in the sideboard, as I said, we have Destructive Revelry, the biggest upgrade for biggest profit for going green in the sideboard. Attacker's Command instead of Skullcracks, of course, the Rolling Vortex, very good card. Sideboard card for burn, and the Rest in Peace is a Pet to Exile, typical stuff for the burn sideboard. So let's check out gameplay. Okay, I lost one very close game. Okay, so this is the league I've played. We'll go through the wins first. Leave the uh, leave the loss for the last, if we have time. Okay, so playing first, I cycle. This Mishra's Bubble can be really good with the Monastery Swiss Spear. In a deck. So playing against Yagmoth, this Yagmoth deck just really doesn't stand much chance. I played Yagmoth Will. I was able to kill the young wolf, then attack through the hierarch. Here, my opponent played a lot of blockers here, but I just went damage face, attack with everything, and put my opponent on 1 life, which means they can't use this Nurturing Peatland for mana. My opponent goes for the Innkeeper, gains 1 life, so I really have to get rid of this Innkeeper fast. I just play the guide, go in again with both of these. I really, yeah, Searing Blaze can be a kill if I draw a land, but I go Searing Blaze here for Innkeeper, so my opponent can't gain life, draw cards, so they concede because any they can use the ability, and any top deck from me is gonna end the game. So that's it. That was game one. I was fast enough to win this game and put my opponent low enough before. Uh, of course, the Nakatal downside is you need to have both Sacred Foundry and Stompy Ground in the game for it to function, but and it doesn't matter that much because the deck doesn't function anyway without lands, so it's not a big deal. So my opponent has the blocker and the attacker here in this situation. Um, I go with both of these creatures and I just pet exile the other one so I get the one more damage. This turn my opponent is just on 1 life in this situation. Uh, okay, my opponent has a very good card for him at this moment. Sheldred is just very unfortunate for me. But I succeed to get out of this situation anyway. Unfortunately, they gain some life here. Um, and this Sheldred is just very good, gaining them life and dealing damage to me. Uh, I I succeeded to get out of this situation anyway, and I went for attack. Just use the attack +1 to all of my creatures, 3 damage to opponent, and pet to exile the Sheldred, which means I kill all of my opponent creatures and kill everything on their board and have close to lethal next turn. Unfortunately, I just draw into more lands, and my opponent top decks the Chord for x2 to finish the game because I was on 2. So I would say pretty lucky from my opponent to get out of this. Okay, game 3 against Yagmoth. Much better, especially when I have Eidolon. Okay, starting with Lava Spike. Being able to go for Eidolon on turn 2 before they play anything, so pretty good. For me, they'll really have a hard time playing through this Eidolon. So I go, of course, for Swiss Spear and the Charm immediately. Sorry, I hold the Charm, of course. My opponent tries to kill the Eidolon, but I give him Indestructible and Prowess Trigger for my Swiss Spear and 2 damage from my Eidolon, and I also get to cast the Bolt on the same turn, so another Prowess Trigger on Swift Spear. So my opponent is forced just to play Hierarch as a blocker here, and I just go Searing Blaze on Hierarch and finish this game. Pretty brutal gameplay. This game used my Boros Charm very well. Okay, so that was game one. Uh, sorry, first win in match two, and the first match we saw this from this deck. Okay, so again playing first, and you can see how good is Herring Bubble here. It kind of enables us to keep this one lander, and also pumps the Swiss Spear on turn one. Just pretty good to have it here. So I see the Morphos on the top, which means we are against the Prowess. They also go for attack. They try to go faster than me. I decide for Searing Blaze in this situation. My opponent has the Mutagenic Growth to save the Swift Spear, but it's okay because they pay 2 life. I get in for another 2 damage. So pretty close game, but my opponent just has the Sprite Dragon here. So no kill yet. I decide to go for Nekatal as blocker and get my opponent into lethal range for next turn. Unfortunately, my Nekatal is 220 blocks, so they can go with dart, but they don't have lethal, so they just attack and hope for the best. Leave the Sprite Dragon back, but of course I have the lethal, and that's game one against Prowess. Game two. On the draw, my opponent starts with Soulscar. I start with Nakatal. They go for the Sprite Dragon, but Sprite Dragon gets the Searing Blaze pretty good in this situation for to kill the Sprite Dragon, going with the Wild Nakatal for another 4. It's great for me. They played just an iteration and the fetch. So just not one soul scar in the block, and I have a lethal here in this situation, so both of my attackers are lethal, and that's it. So a very quick games against my prowess opponent. Okay, so third win. Third win again situation where I have Monastery Spear and the Bubble on turn 1. Pretty good feeling to have this in Burn, to be honest. So it feels very good to go for 2 damage on the same turn with the Swift Spear. It seems like it was a creativity opponent. So I drew into another Spear, so I go with to attack with both Spears this turn. My opponent I don't even have to attack. I have lethal in hand, so that's it. Creativity is pretty easy matchup for Burn. Also this version too. Okay, so I keep a slower hand. Um, I keep a slower hand, but luckily have a very good top deck with the Goblin Guide here. It was, I think this top deck was crucial for winning immediately. And my opponent has the Pierce. I know they have it and they have the other one, so I just play the Goif here. They immediately Leyland Binding. So I know my opponent has Pierce, so I wait for them to play something, maybe removal, then try to go Border Charm and get in with for 2 damage. So I know they have Spell Pierce, but they're stuck on mana, so they can play both Spell Pierce, and I can just replay immediately all of my spells and end the game immediately. So that was it. That was a game against my creativity opponent, and we will now see. Just a second. Where is it? Here it is. This was the last game of that league, the last win. Okay, so this time start with a typical burn hand. My opponent I revealed Violent Outburst from the top. It's so good with 2 Eidolons in hand to play against the Cascade deck. It can be easier really, so I just attack, of course, with my creatures. My opponent's deck is not doing anything. I just resolve the second Eidolon, get in for 4, and my opponent will get 8 damage from just trying to resolve the Cascade spell, so it's pretty much game over. I have more than enough damage, and they can't even resolve this spell, so that's it. Very fast win against the Living End. Okay, I once again a decent hand, guide, 2 Eidolons. Eidolon is obviously pretty good against Cascade decks, so 4 damage just for them to cast it. I was hoping with this hand to stick the Eidolon and then try to win, try to draw some burn hands from burn spells from top of my deck. My opponent discards the second Eidolon. Uh, there was no point in trying to play this Nekatl because I was expecting the Cascade spell next turn, so I just save Nekatl in hand, but my opponent doesn't even have uh, probably red mana on this turn to cast the outburst, so that's it. Okay, we can check the loss from this league. It was in game 1 against a creativity opponent. My opponent started. I had a pretty good hand, but my opponent started with Fury. With a Fury Scam on turn 1 as a 4/4, and of course, as a burn deck, it's hard for me to deal with this. Uh, I was also forced to. I was forced to fetch pretty aggressively. I had to go for at least a stomping ground, so uh, maybe if I gone for double mountain, I would maybe survive. And in this situation, I'm finally able to kill the Fury, but I'm too far behind. So my opponent has the Den of the Bugbear. If I didn't draw this mountain, if I had the mountain, I would be able to play both of my Searing Blazes, put my opponent to 7, then draw a card off of the Sunbake Canyon, try to do something. But yeah, that Fury turn 1 was too big a problem. So I wasn't able to win after falling so far behind. Okay, going for a guide again in game 2. Pretty aggressive hand, 2 Swiss Spears, Eidolon. So I just decide to go with all the creatures in. They trade for the Ragavan. Uh, this time they decide to attack and play another one in the to block with. So uh, I think it was best just to go for Eidolon here. Resolve the Eidolon, then try to win with burn spells. I got the bubble to trigger another. My opponent was stepped, so I decided to take the opportunity to go in for 3 damage with Swiss Spear. Uh, they leave Butcher back as a blocker and discard Lava Spike, but that was it. Eidolon means they can't play any more spells, so they concede. Okay, this was the game 2, so unfortunately, okay, this was. I think I could have played a bit better in this game and maybe a win game that way. I'll tell you what I think I could have done maybe. So I went have bubble here. Land is in the graveyard, so already Goif is out of the bolt range. Now it's already a 4/5 on turn 2, so pretty good. I should have gone for Boros Charm here because I saw the Fury. With the bubble, so I was kind of expecting them to. I should have waited for them to use Fury maybe on my Spear and then play the Goif. If I had done that, I would probably be able to. I will probably be able to win this game. So I was missing another burn spell to kill this Fury, unfortunately. So I had to do bad things to survive, like going Boros Charm here, losing 2 life, so they can't attack with Fury, and I save Eidolon from push. It is still not that bad situation if I just get that another burn spell. But yeah, my opponent had 0 cards in hand. Top decked terminate. In this situation, if they go to attack with both creatures, I would survive on 1 life if they didn't draw into anything. So I would be able to survive on 1 life, block with my Eidolon, and then play the Spear, play the Searing Blaze, maybe try to do something if with another burn spell that's exactly lethal. But I think I was really close to winning this game too. If I didn't play the Goif that turn, I could have gone for maybe Boros Charm to face, try to force them into playing Fury into empty board or maybe on the Spear next turn. That's definitely problem. It was actually better for me to prolong the game in this situation, just play a longer game because I had plenty of good burn spells in hand. So it didn't end up good for me, but I had a way to win this game. I just didn't see it at the moment. So that's it. Okay, the games were pretty quick and pretty fun. I think Goif was pretty good in a lot of situations. It was very large early in the game, so when playing against Burn, your opponent is definitely in most situations going to try to kill the guide or the Swiftspear or the Nakatal turn 1, which means on turn 2, Goif will already be huge. And as I said, already said, there are a lot of these decks at the moment playing dear, very cheap spells like Prowess style, playing DRC, filling the graveyard quick, so Tarmogoyf gets tends to get pretty big, and Valna Cattle is just a good addition to the burn game plan, and Tarmogoyf is just another big beater that gets well uh, into the build, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, but to support it, we have to play some cards we would not usually play. But as you saw, the Mishra Bubble was actually pretty nice with the Swiss Spear on a turn one, being able to go for 2 damage can maybe mean a lot. That extra damage on turn one can maybe mean a lot, and in some matchups. And of course, Mishra's Bubble being 0 mana means often Swiss Spear will get extra trigger on turn 2 or turn 3 or later in the game. So it's just good with Swiss Spear. Obviously, it's not a bad card, but it's a good card with Swiss Spear, but it also supports our Tarmogoyf. It's not good with Eidolon, but you will always play your bubbles first before you play the Eidolon. So it didn't happen even once to me in the entire league to be able to cast multiple bubbles with Eidolon on the field. So it's not something that happens pretty often. And we are splashing white for the best burn spell. Boros Charm and some sideboard cards like Rest in Peace, Pet to Exile. Uh, no Lightning Helix, obviously you could play it on the sideboard, but I think the current sideboard cards work pretty well. So playing, I decided against Core Firewalker because it's 2 white mana, kind of more difficult to cast it in this version than the usual version. So that's it. Okay, I hope you liked the deck. It was for me. It was pretty fun. Had a pretty decent result with it. Of course, sometimes you play just like a regular burn. Sometimes on a game one, but then game two you start with Wild and Cattle. Turn one and Tarmogoyf on turn two with Mishra Bubble, and your opponent is just wait a second. What I'm playing against? They're confused, maybe misboarded some removals or something like that. So, okay, it worked out pretty fun, in my opinion, and it's working pretty decent. It's maybe something to consider to play in Burn. I think this is not a worse Burn. It has, I think, this version has its advantages. I think Tarmogoyf it's a pretty good creature at the moment against those DRC decks. You can just often stick it on turn two and count on it to be pretty huge. It's a tool that will help you win countless prowess matchups. And yeah, so the league was pretty fun and it was terribly close to the trophy, but maybe one misplay in the entire league, maybe the only misplay in the entire league, cost me the trophy. Okay, so that's it. Sideboard is pretty neat too. Maybe there are some adjustments to be made for a more specific meta, but for open meta on MTGO like this, I'm pretty satisfied. So that's it. You can subscribe to the channel, click like, subscribe, and that's it until the next time. Okay, bye.